Hello and welcome to Fernbank Science Center's The Sky This Week for April 11th through 17th, 2021. The moon is new at the beginning of this week. There's a meteor shower that starts up about halfway through the week, and the bright winter stars are visible in the evening sky by week's end. Start on Sunday, April 11th, around 9 o'clock at night, and face the north part of the sky. If you're not sure which way is north, unfortunately, there's not going to be a little letter N telling you that. But if you put your right shoulder toward the direction where the sun rises, that's the east, you'll be able to be facing north and find a couple of famous patterns. The Big Dipper pattern, 7 fairly bright stars, 4 for a cup or a bowl, 3 more for a handle. This looks kind of small here on the screen, but this is a large pattern across the early evening sky. If you spread out, stick one arm straight out ahead of you, spread out your fingers as wide as you'll go, put the tip of one thumb on the tail end of the Big Dipper, your pinky finger will stretch all the way to the other end. It's about a handspan across on the evening sky. The 2 stars on the end of the Big Dipper's bowl point to the North Star, Polaris. Not all that bright, but pretty famous. North Star is on the end of the Little Dipper pattern, but that one's a lot harder to find. The pattern is small, the stars are dim. At this time of year, the pattern appears to be parallel to the horizon. Looks like it's sideways on the sky. If you get a clear early evening sky, try that early this week. By the middle of the week, facing the eastern part of the sky, early in the morning, a couple of bright planets, Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn rises first. An hour or two later, the bright Jupiter is visible. This is a little deceiving. Jupiter and Saturn will not appear as bright, big splots on the sky. Instead, they're tiny, star-like looking things, really bright. Jupiter much brighter than Saturn. Look a little higher on the horizon, though, about halfway up the sky, and there are 3 bright stars that form a giant triangle. If you remember, the Big Dipper was a handspan across. This one's even bigger than that. It's about halfway up the sky. Each of the stars is in a different constellation. Each of the constellations is supposed to be some kind of a bird. We're looking for the constellation of Lyra, the Lyre, the highest one up. Bright star is Vega. The Lyre is a little bent box shape of stars with Vega at one side. And if you draw a line down to the next brightest star toward the northeast, that one is the star Deneb, and it's in the constellation of Cygnus, the swan. The constellation kind of looks like a sideways cross on the early morning sky. Draw a line over to the next bright star. That one is Altair. It's part of Aquila, the eagle. Add up the third side of the triangle. Sometimes this group is called the summer triangle. At this time of year, early spring, we can see it in the early morning sky. By the next few months, Earth will have moved along its orbit, and this pattern will be in the evening sky, easier to see and high up. The interesting part is the Lyid meteor shower starts in April 14th. So facing the east, about halfway up the sky, find that bright star Lyra, bright star Vega in Lyra, at the top of that triangle. The best part, or the best time, the peak of the Lyrid meteor shower will be next week, April 21st to 23rd. A meteor shower occurs when Earth crosses through the orbit of a comet that has gone by and left a trail of tiny bits behind it. Those tiny bits ablate or burn up in the Earth's atmosphere and look like shooting stars. The Lyrid meteor shower is not a lot of meteors, maybe 10 to 15 per hour, but sometimes you get lucky and see many more. If you have a clear sky, try that early in the morning, all next week after the 14th. Back to those bright planets. By the 15th, If you're facing the eastern part of the sky early in the morning, use a pair of binoculars. See if you can see some of Jupiter's moons, the 4 biggest Galilean moons, nearby on the early morning sky. By the end of the week, the moon is starting to become visible, a tiny crescent. Now we're facing west, opposite of where east was. So now north is at our backs. And if we can find where that thin waxing crescent moon is, it's right among all those bright leftover winter stars that we've been looking at for the last few months. Brightest of the lot, Sirius, part of the big dog, Ursa Major. The twins, Castor and Pollux, the Gemini twins. They're near the top of the sky by this time of night. The moon is a little thin crescent, but over the next day or two, the moon and the planet Mars both appear to move through the horns of Taurus, the bull. The V shape of stars, about the size of your fist at arm's length, fairly close to the western horizon. The horns of the bull stick up high, and over toward the end of the week, the moon and the planet Mars will be moving through that part of the sky. If the weather is clear, keep an eye out there toward the western part of the sky. In the evening, see if you can find those. Thank you for listening this week. Please keep an eye out on our webpage, www.fernbank.edu, for information about when we'll be reopening, hopefully soon. Watch our Facebook page for the Friday evening virtual planetarium programs and Saturday science programs. Thanks again for listening. Have a great week.